The Olympus Mju 2, as it is known throughout the world except America, where it's known as the Stylus 2, maybe Stylus Epic 2. And I want to talk to you about why I've always wanted this, where I restored it recently, and what I'm hoping to do with it. So to give you a bit of background on this series of Olympus cameras, I'd like to introduce you to the Olympus XA. This is the XA1, the very first that Olympus made in this series. And this camera became, well, there's 4 different variations, maybe 5, but this camera became the pocket camera for any professional who wanted something to capture snaps with when they didn't have a DSLR on hand. As you can see, this camshell design has been mirrored across. These are probably 20 years apart, these cameras. You can see the small form factor of the XA was a big winner, and it was an autofocus camera. It was some of them was zone focus, but amazing sharp lenses. Now the lens on this is a f4, and I think it's a 35mm f4. So not super fast, but some of them were a little bit faster, and they were renowned for their lens quality. When Olympus started to take this design seriously again was with the Mju 1, or in America, the Stylus. The Stylus has a autofocus lens, obviously, very good autofocus, extremely fast. 35mm lens again, but this one's a 3.5, so a little bit faster than the XA. The one problem I have with this camera, and I actually prefer the design of this camera to the Mju 2. The one problem I have with this camera, and the thing that stops me from using it, I shoot candid portraits, what I call candid portraits. Portraits of people out and about doing their thing. Basically street photography, but sort of more posed than that. You'll notice that the flash on this camera is very close to the center line of the lens. This results in massive red eye, like massive red eye. They did fix this with the function on the flash. There's only 2 buttons on this camera, flash and self timer. The flash button has the option to either turn it off or to red eye reduce. Now it works very well, however I am not interested in pre-flashing for red eye. I want to capture the image when I want to capture it, not a moment of a second later. So that was a big downfall for me in this camera. I've been looking for a Mju 2 for a long time. This is a 35mm again, and it's a much faster lens at 2.8. As you'll notice, the flash is much further off the center line than the Mju 1. It's a lot smaller camera. Thickness, pretty much every dimension smaller. And this camera became pretty much the pocket camera of choice for professionals who wanted something in their pocket. It's very pocketable. I mean, you can see a lot of digital cameras haven't even got this small. And the lens quality on this is amazing, pin sharp. So I've been looking for one of these for a good part of 4 years, and I've found a few, but they've all been busted. I scored this one at the dump shop this last week for $3, and it's in perfect condition. It even came with one of these batteries. For those that you don't know about this battery, it's a lithium battery. It's called a CR123A. The problem with these batteries are they are expensive. So having a bonus one in this made this, if I had to buy a new battery for it, this would have been a $20 fine instead of a $3 fine, maybe even more. So with the battery, a true bargain. I haven't put a roll of film in it yet. I have some film for it. Kodak Gold 400. I scored a 4-pack of this recently, and so I'm going to run this in that camera. And I will link up to this video, the video where I share some results from that. Now another camera in this series. So we've got the Mju 1, the Mju 2. They were about 5 years apart, 4 or 5 years apart, maybe slightly more. And another camera that came along in this series was called the LT1. Now this is a beautiful camera. This is actually leather. They came in brown, which was the most common, a burgundy red, which they sort of called wine, I think, which was less common, and an olive green, which is absolutely uncommon. This is a beautiful camera. It is actually a Mju 1 with a cool shell. There's a few extra buttons. This one's a time date. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Quartz date one. Two things I don't like about this camera, and I have used this and I have shot rolls of film with it. You're doing it as what I normally do with my cameras. Again, this flash is pretty much in an identical place to the Mju 1. The autofocus is fine. The flash is annoying. And the second thing I didn't like about it, that I got caught on several times, that you can see I've actually blue tacked up. This is a panorama switch. Now, there's only a very little indicator in the lens that this is in the viewfinder when this is switched over, and it's totally useless. All it does is put a border, like a plastic blind, comes across the negative so that you're using the middle third. So totally useless, and has ruined many a shot. I think out of the first test roll I put through, maybe a third of the photos were ruined because I'd accidentally slid that across. Still love this camera. Won it on an auction, local auction in New Zealand. Bet a good friend of mine who's an avid camera collector, a photographer, and bet him out of it. Super happy I own one. When I was working in camera stores, I sold a ton of all of these cameras and always wanted a LT1. They were ridiculously expensive, like maybe $600 or $700. Yeah, between $500 and $700, and that was in the 90s. So a very expensive camera. So the summary is, I'm hoping that with the faster lens I will have to use flash less. I'm also hoping when I use flash that it doesn't give red eye. One great thing about these cameras, the LT1 especially, does a very nice full flash. There's no button to set it. It just does it automatically. It knows that you're shooting at night, that you're taking, you're using forcing flash as well, and it balances very nicely. So yeah, I will be sure to post up the results when I have some.